Hey, Karen, what's shaking?
Hi, Brian. Oh, such a good day today. How are you, my friend?
A great day. The sun is shining. Great weekend, and very happy that we have this incredible guest today, a titan in the natural hair world, and we're just so privileged to have her. And
And
let's
she's
introduce
a
her.
friend, and she is a pioneer, and she's a vet in the industry, and she is like queen. I just, we circulate around the same group of people, and now we finally have Miss Diane C. Bailey on the show, right? Am I right?
Welcome, Diane.
Hi, you guys are so funny.
We
Crack it up.
So
We're
how
very,
are you doing today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm awesome today. Yeah, it's a great day. It's Monday. I feel really good. Getting ready to work on another event for the Natural Hair Industry Convention, but it's a virtual event, so I have some things to do for that today, and I'm going to be doing some writing. So I'm good, and talking to you guys is always awesome.
Great.
Good.
So we've had guests in the past, Arlette Pender, Susan Peterkin, and some other guests. And
yes,
the conversation always circles around Diane C. Bailey somehow.
That's it. Really?
Oh, yeah. And so it's so wonderful to have you here, and we want to hear your story and
Okay.
share with our guests your inspiring tales.
Okay. Well, I am Diane C. Bailey, also known as the Natural Hair Authority. I am the CEO of Emerge, which is the Natural Beauty Industry Alliance, which is like a collective network alliance. I'm also 40 years in the industry as a thought leader. I also promote textured hair inclusion as an activist. I'm a master pioneer, as you said. I'm an author and a contributing content writer for magazines, an educator, a brand ambassador, and an event planner. So I have a lot of jobs.
You wear a lot of hats.
Yes, I do.
And if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, the thing about it is all of these things I love, love, love. There's not one over the other. I kind of blend them together to make this kind of movement so I can move forward. And then, you know, my whole agenda around natural hair, and Karen, you know this, is, you know, to normalize natural hair and braiding and locks, to normalize it across the board so that, you know, people can live their life authentically, people can live their life with their truth, and not have to, dismiss themselves and continue the hair trauma or the hair identity around the trauma of hair that's not being appreciated and being discriminated against around the country and around the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's my job.
There's compromise, and then there's compromise that is not compromising. Like,
right.
It's part of your identity. It is part of your history, your culture, and this is the message that we're trying to spread. That it's okay to have locks. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are in the world, but to understand that everybody comes from a different place, a different purpose, a different message that they, reason that they have their lock journey. It's personal. Right,
exactly. And also too, nobody fits in this confined beauty that, we have a European aesthetic. No one really fits. In America, everyone wants to be blonde. So they're spending lots of hundreds and thousands of dollars bleaching their hair, lightening their hair, because that's the aesthetic. That's the marketing of beauty, and this is a standard of beauty, and we all should, rise to the occasion of this beauty. But women of color cannot rise to that occasion. So where do they fit in the spectrum? Well, they fit on the lower end of the spectrum. And because of that, and this is historical, because of that, we have been, kind of diminished and demeaned and belittled and ostracized and penalized for something that we are born with. And so just like our skin color has a precedence and needed to be recognized as a human attribute and not something that is negative, our hair is the same thing. It's just an attribute, and it shouldn't be critiqued or demeaned because it doesn't fit your standard.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
This is why we have you on the show.
Well, Diane, I've been in the industry for 35 years.
Yes.
And I think that things are starting to change a little bit. I think organizations like yours and people like you that are thought leaders, and you're really moving the needle on a lot of
Well,
this stuff.
also too, what's happening, social media has given sped up communication, goes directly into the homes of people who are being ostracized. I mean, there were so many incidents in America, in states like Virginia and New York, where people have been sued because of their racial bias based on hair texture and typing. And those people have won the lawsuit. And the person who was perpetrating them had to pay a penance and a penalty because of it. And so right now, one of the things I'm doing as an activist is to support the Crowned Act. The Crowned Act is a synonym for creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. And so far, we have 8 states that have taken on this agenda and made it a law to discriminate against anyone, man or woman, based on hair type or texture or hairstyle, which includes locks. They will be penalized for that and financially burdened, and in some cases, they have to pay a fine. They have to pay the person they violated, and they have to pay a fine to the city. Yeah, so enough of the nonsense, okay, people?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
So how many times has that actually happened? Do you know? Is there information out there about how many people have actually been fined?
I mean, throughout the years, it's endless numbers. Some are unaccounted because people just accepted the behavior as the standard. I mean, we conform to a standard of beauty so we could survive. We conform to a standard of beauty so that we could live. We conform to a standard of beauty so that our children could live well. I mean, there are all types of reasons why we conform to a standard of beauty. So they made relaxers, and the relaxers allowed us to conform to a standard of straight hair, even though that standard provided health issues. They found carcinogens in the relaxers. They found other toxins in some of the hair structured, motivating it to be straight. So people like myself, 1982, 83, I opened a jar of relaxer, and the smell of it, I could just smell the disgustingness of it. And I said, there's no way I'm gonna live my life smelling this stuff every day of my life, right? So I was committed not to do that. And so I got my cosmetology license in 1981, and that was it. I couldn't do it. I could not do the relaxer. So what was I supposed to do? Well, braiding was my forte. I loved it. I met some sisters from Africa in Spain when I went to Spain, and they showed me how to do locks. And then I met another sister in Chicago who showed me how to do locks. And then, and so I just started meeting people and engaging and learning, and we started exchanging information. We started an organization called the International Braiders Network, and in 1992, and that's when we started really engaging each other, and we found each other from all over the country. So it started then.
Wow. So well before social media.
Way before social
internet.
media. No
internet in 92.
Oh, right. It was because, telephone, telegraph, kind of thing. And so we started, exchanging information, exchanging numbers. Then then we created another, that lasted a few years, and people started breaking off and doing different things. Then we started another organization called the International Braiders Network. And I was the VP of that. Talani Kennard was the president, Deborah Hairbay was a few of us. And that's when we went to the state of New York to lobby for a natural hair license. And we got that license in 1994. And so that license allowed us to, and it wasn't the panacea we wanted. It wasn't exactly as we had positioned it to be, but it was a close facsimile of what we see today. Of course, it took a minute, and that's when I got the offer to write a book. Because now we have a license, how are we going to teach it? Right. So that's so Milady Publishing came to me and asked me to write it, and I said, of course. And that was the beginning. That was the first book. And then once social media came, about 2000, I saw things happening around 2002, 2003. And I went back to Milady and I wrote a proposal and said, listen, you need to update this book. The language has changed. There's a whole consumer-based engagement now. Let's do it. And so that's how I got the second book.
Can we see it, Karen?
Ta-da!
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Milady.
This
Natural
is
hair care and braiding.
wealth.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wealth
It's
of information.
Wealth of information. And I'm going to be working on another book soon. But this is the holy grail right now for entry-level natural hair people. And it's a great reference guide.
Mm-hmm. How can people get a hold of this?
Oh, they can just go to Amazon, put in Diane C.
Amazon?
Bailey. Yeah, put in Diane C. Bailey, and it'll come right up.
Amazing.
Amazon.
I'm just going to show everybody again just a close-up of the book so they can really get so Milady actually asked you to write the original book for natural hair.
Yes, I was appointed to the state as an advisor for the state on the licensing. So I would go up, once every other month or so and sit with the board of cosmetology and some of their elders who were all white, of course. So they needed somebody to come up there and tell them what it was. So I was one of the advisors appointed. And then I brought in, of course, my posse so that we can engage and answer questions and so forth and so on. So once that happened, and they knew I was an authority with information and not just an authority resources, that's when Milady came and asked me to do it. Yes.
So let me ask you this: why is it not available in hair schools all over North America and beyond?
Well, you got to realize something. Most schools don't teach natural hair. They teach for the test. They teach for the license. If the test doesn't have a question on natural hair, they're not teaching it. So that's why we have a campaign called Don't Skip Chapter 18, and that's the chapter with natural hair and braiding in it, because it's not on the test. They don't teach it.
Right. Okay, so I'm just trying to think about when I went to school. I went to cosmetology school in Toronto, Canada, in 1997. I took my test in 99. And I very much specifically remember reading the chapter of natural hair and being like, where's the rest of it? Where's the mannequin heads to learn this? Where are we learning?
Right. Nothing.
And
that was 1999, 1997, and still in 2021, they put it in, right? They put a chapter in there, of course. But if it's not on the exam, the schools are not required to teach it.
Not required.
So that's where we're at right now, trying to get them to, put in a few questions in the exam. But again, in America, every state has its own jurisdiction. Every state has its own state board. Every state has its own commission. So we would have to go state by state by state by state.
Mhm.
That's
And
what I
Canada
thought.
is a whole other country, right? And we go province by province as well. So this is my ask to the people in Ontario, the Allied Beauty Association and the provincial government to incorporate this, at least talk about it, mention it, because when you go to cosmetology school, you expect to learn all hair. It doesn't matter. It's about hair.
Yeah, but this is the thing, you have to realize something. And this is no fault of their own. It's systematic racism.
Yeah.
So it's almost like people are just blinded to the fact that there are other aesthetics that have value. They just don't see it. They have no it's not a thought. It's not part of their processing. And so our job, your job, is to, with, shows like this, is to bring awareness, go out into the community and start talking about it. As soon as we're able to, you should be going to the high schools, you should be going to colleges, you should be going to universities, and bringing them the information around, normalizing naturally textured hair and locks and braids and things like that. No one's going to give you the gift. The box is not, they're not going to do it. Unless you bring it to their attention, why should they? Because in most cases, they are not aware. It doesn't even exist to them. They have no knowledge. They're looking at you like, what language are you speaking? I went to one of my clients, long story short, the New York City Human Rights Commission hired me to teach one of their offenders. She lost her case. She was sued by 5 of her staff members for having racial discrimination based on hair. She told all her staff, especially the Black ones, they had to wear their hair up. They couldn't wear their hair out. They couldn't wear their hair down. And one girl had locks and another girl had braids. Another sister, she was Latina, so she had really curly hair. And she wanted everybody to wear their hair up and back, and they sued her and they won. And because of that, one of her, things that she had to do to make amends for her wrong was 36 hours of classes with me. That was funny. So, yeah. Incredible. Exactly. So I had to kind of retrain her how to think about beauty from a woman of color. So the first 3 weeks, I brought in 8 middle school girls with all kinds of hair types and textures, and brought them to Madison Avenue, exclusive salon, awesome salon. When you go in there, it's Madison, between Madison and Central Park. So it's exclusively Caucasian white. And here you go, some chocolate girls from the hood going up to a beautiful space like that. So it was a great experience for the girls. And it was a great experience for the woman who owned the salon, because she got to hear directly from these young women about their hair and how they feel, and the transition they had to make from feeling, not attractive because there was nothing to affirm them, to feeling better about themselves at 16, 17. Of course, the high school girls were even more profound, more articulate around hair discrimination and feeling the hair trauma around not being able to, conform to a standard that is not their own. So we did collages. I had them cut out pictures for magazines and tell their story, whether, how they felt before, how they feel now, or how they're going to feel in the future. And those collages were so telling and so opening and so warm. I also took them to the Schomburg Library, which is a library up in Harlem, where it goes over Black history. It's a library, but it is specifically around Black history. And so we went there and I was able to show them, the Middle Passage. I was able to talk about Jim Crow. They didn't even know what Jim Crow was. They were like, what are you talking about? I thought there was they thought it was two types of slavery. I was like, excuse me? You think there's two types of slavery? Oh, really? What do you mean? Well, the slavery, where, one was in the South and one was in the North. And I was like, uh-huh. I said, really? I said, really? This is when I knew I had to take them to the Schomburg. I said, really? I said, no, one type of slavery. However, imagine somebody put you in a box, right? Mm-hmm. And told you you had to stay in that box forever. And then they took you out of that box and put you in a bigger box.
It's still a box.
It's still a box. It's still a box. So then she got it. So yeah, they took you out of slavery, which was a smaller box, and they put you in a slightly larger box, which was called
the language. Change the language, my friend.
Exactly, exactly. So that bigger box was another 103 years of Jim Crow, where Blacks lived here and were confined to this area and confined to this type of work and confined, and whites lived over here and had plush green grass and great food, and they were able to flourish. And so that's when the light bell went off. And then how do you connect all of that with hair? How does that all bridge together around self-care and people caring about themselves and the trauma that they had around that? So just bringing it back. So it was a great opportunity for me to see it and for them to experience it as well.
Oh my gosh, what a fantastic story. I am so glad you shared that with us.
Oh, and to have a video of that education that you did would be incredible. Can you imagine?
Would be incredible. I wish I had the permission to do that.
Oh.
I wish I did. I did not get the permission, but I'm going to do it again because, that platform showed me how the lack of education feeds prejudice. The lack of education, feeds systematic racism to the highest level. And as long as we stay uneducated, it's almost like you can't fault people from being racist because the knowledge was denied them. So this is their normal. They don't even understand what you're talking about. It's like they have no idea until we bring it to them in a platter. This is what it is. And that's why Black Lives Matter made such a great statement, because it was bringing it right to them, things that they were able to ignore, they could not ignore because it was unpleasant and it was uncomfortable, but it elevated everyone's awareness. And that's what's important.
That's what it's about, awareness. And actually, Karen and I, when we started talking about Noggin Oil, our brand, or sectioned hair, that was one of the things that really stood out for us. It's, a Black man and a white woman putting this product out. In a way, it's sort of emblematic of the change that needs to happen, right?
Yes.
And it's kind of part of our platform. We don't talk a lot about it, but I think that's what needs to happen.
Don't shy away from it. Like, don't feel like you can't say it. Don't feel like the obvious is not so obvious. Like, you need to use that platform so that people can get uncomfortable, because until people are uncomfortable, they're not going to change. Why should they? They're comfortable. Would I change if I was comfortable?
Exactly.
Right. No, right. Why would I put a shoe on that's painful? No, I want to wear a comfortable shoe, right? So
you had to throw in the shoe reference, Diane.
I had to throw in the shoe. Come on, throw the shoe in there. But yeah, so I'm gonna walk a longer journey in a comfortable shoe. I'm gonna walk a longer journey, and that's my goal, right? So yes, I'm gonna force some people to put on that uncomfortable shoe. I'm sorry. And in the beginning, it's gonna be a little tight, and you're gonna be like, oh, I don't know, this shoe is not right. Okay, maybe it's not right today, but let's do it again tomorrow. And the next day, and the next day, and then all of a sudden, it makes sense. It feels right. It's comfortable. And then you can embrace it, and then you can walk a long, long mile, right? So that's my mission.
That is a wonderful analogy. Incredible.
So good.
And on
Great.
that note,
Yes. You go.
we are going to break for a quick little commercial, and we'll be right back.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Karen, your hair looks super cool today, man.
Oh,
What's going on?
thanks, Brian. I have Noggin Oil to thank.
What is Noggin Oil?
You don't know what Noggin Oil is? I have
No.
a cleanser, a toner, and a moisturizer for my scalp.
And those 3 little roller balls look very cute. What are they?
Great question, Brian. We have Replenish, which is like a light moisturizer for your noggin. We have the Chill, which is for alleviating tension and discomfort to the scalp, especially during tightening services for locks or braids. And Glow is the multi-carrier treatment oil, and it's more of your heavy-duty moisturizer for the noggin. Great for these winter months and great for extra dry scalp.
For parted hairstyles, sectioned hair,
Locks, braids, hair extensions, weaves, twists, anything.
amazing. Looks beautiful and minimal and healthy.
We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
And we're back. And Karen has a question.
I
So
have a
shoot,
question.
Karen.
When we were talking before the break about how natural hair really isn't talked about in cosmetology school, what's the next step, right? How does this get at least talked about? How do we have this? Okay, it's one step to get it in the tests, but let's be honest, with the new generation, the young generation, there's a lot more interracial students coming into the classroom. There's more representation. And so, this should be as equal as the Milady cosmetology. It
Right.
should just be one. So what's
Yeah.
the next step? What's there?
So I think that one of the things that will help move the process along to activate more learning around natural hair is just start having more conversation outside of our immediate zone. Like, you have to go in spaces and places where they're not doing it, like they have no knowledge of it, and volunteer to do it. Just say, listen, I want to spend 1 hour with the 5th grade. I want to spend 1 hour with your graduating students. I want to spend 1 hour letting people know that there's a standard of beauty that can be duplicated, and it is a standard that has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we've modified it so that it can work for us. Like in the book, there are at least 60 herbs that you can use around, conditioning and grooming your hair. It talks about scalp disorders and diseases, and some of the popular ones like traction alopecia, that is specifically for people who wear braids and have locks and do a lot of pulling on their hair, because at this point in America, traction alopecia is epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
Epidemic. And that is because people are doing way too much to their hair. There's way too much pulling. They have these pristine locks that are so tight and wrapped around, and they wear it in a bun for weeks at end, and it's creating a lot of trauma and pulling on the scalp. And so there's a lot to talk about. I mean, if you're just talking to young girls, you can talk about the Beyoncés and the Carly B's and that type of aesthetic versus an aesthetic that is more African-based and more subtle, and how those two kind of join together. I mean, Beyonce did a video last year. I forgot the title of it, but it was all based in Africa. And some of the hairstyles had African traditional looks to it. And so they're incorporating these beautiful African tribal looks and making them more modern, more, digestible, as it were, and mainstream.
And
So yeah, it's a lot of work, but even if you did something in your salon once a month for 1 hour.
You know what, Karen? We should do something and put it out digitally. Like send it to the schools, send it to the people in the government that are making the decisions. And then that way we're hitting way more people and, hopefully
That
having
would
a
be
bigger
awesome.
impact.
Like, exactly. Like, even if you said you're going to go to a school and record it, and then take that recording and then send it out.
Yeah.
It shows your commitment to the community, one. It gives you a vast number of people to reach at that time. And you're educating the establishment because they have no clue.
Yeah.
They're too far removed, it's a whole generation difference of priorities,
Well, I've actually already been speaking at a couple of schools, but then COVID happened and things shut down. And and they reached out to me and said, we want to learn about locks. So of course, I'm talking about locks. I'm in Toronto. Can you hear that?
That's okay. It's all good.
For them to reach out to me and ask me about teaching the students about locks and my business and my career and how I, how it all came to be, I definitely incorporate, the natural hair platform, educating people about natural hair, because it's not just about me doing locks. I think they brought me there sort of as a business professional. How did I specialize in this as a business?
Yes.
But it's a perfect opportunity for me to embellish on that, how I was inspired, and really the importance of locks to the Black community and what that really means in their identity. So
yes, exactly. And so that's important. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. I do it with the Girl Scouts. I go, twice a year. I was going to the Girl Scouts when I was with Shea Moisture and giving out products, and for an hour, because the Girl Scouts, they have to get those badges. So I would be one of the badges, like talking about self-care, and so they would get a self-care badge. So it's really cute, and it connects to another generation. You're able to talk to them and get them to understand that, the hair, they're fine just the way they are, especially when you go to middle schools. They, that whole quandary of being a middle school, 11, 12, 13-year-old, and trying to fit in. And so I go there to tell them, you're fine, you fit in fine, just, rock what you got, and they're like, really? And I'm like, really? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, don't underestimate the impact of doing little things.
And Diane, you also mentioned hair relaxers and the toxicity, how you couldn't handle it.
Yes.
In 1993, I developed contact dermatitis on my hands because of perm solution.
Wow.
So the perm solution and the neutralizer, I stopped doing perms in the salon. Like, we just completely stopped cold turkey in 1983. And so my whole education around health and healthy ingredients, you touched on that in the book, the Milady book, the herbal aspect and remedies and stuff like that. So I'm 100% on that too.
Yeah. And and it's just, and if you know your journey, if you know you love hair and you love people, and then for a fact that when you look at the back label, it's toxic and how it affects you. I never had a dermatitis from it, but the smell of it was so pungent that there is no way I was going to live my life smelling that mess every day of my life. And I love doing hair, but I just couldn't do it. And I remember telling my mother, I'm not doing any more relaxers and I'm only going to do natural hair. And my mother was like, what are you talking about? No one's going to pay you for nappy hair. That's what she said. My own mother. Okay?
I can totally hear that.
And I said to her, I don't care. And then she said to me, well, nappy hair is not sexy.
Wow.
My own mother.
Mhm.
And I
Because
said to her,
because it's all put into her head. This is how
So
she was
ingrained.
raised. This
this
was
is what
the
I'm saying.
generation.
Generational trauma. That was showing, she was showing me generational trauma. I experienced it myself. And I said to her, I don't care.
Mhm.
I don't care what they think. I don't care who thinks it's not cool, sexy, whatever. I'm going to make it sexy. I'm going to make it.
You're gonna walk
Wow.
the Diane C. Bailey path.
That's right. I'm going to make it sexy. And that's what I did. I worked out, you know, I did it. I added extensions. I, you know, groom locks, and we made it sexy. We made it alluring. We made it, you know, so that people can see that because someone's hair has texture to it, it doesn't give it less appeal. Come on. And so, of course, my mother was proud of me because she eventually went natural herself.
Yeah.
And you know, and so one of the things that I do ask when I go out into, you know, to different places, and you guys can use this too, whenever I ask people, who hurt you when you went natural? Who hurt you when you decided you were going to lock your hair? Who said something negative to you or disapproved of the fact that you decided you were not going to conform to a standard of beauty that was not yours? You are not going to conform to that. You're going to conform to something else. And it gets people to think. I remember I was on a cruise with Shea Moisture, and I put that question out there to the audience, and several people raised their hands, and they were telling me my mother, my sister, you know, at my job, in different places like that. And I asked one woman, I walked over to her with the mic, and she told me no one. I said, okay, I'll come back to you. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. Okay, I'll be back. I'll be back. So then I went around the room again, and I was talking to different people. And then I went back to her again. I said, so you had a minute to think, who hurt you when you went natural? And then she said, yeah, my father, with tears in her eyes, with tears, because it is emotional, but it is so, what's the word when you release something? It is so healing. It is so, you know, to acknowledge it, to recognize it, to see that the things that you see about yourself, you didn't plant that into yourself. Someone planted it in you because it was planted in them, and so on and so on. So this is generational, intergenerational trauma that we're talking about. And so once you get that, then you can acknowledge it, right? That your grandmother said it, her grandmother said it, and then her grandmother said it. So it's not your fault that you've been programmed to believe and think that your natural hair is not attractive. It was part of the system. It was systemized. And that's the conversation. Bigger than anything, that self-care and self-love has been denied you through a system. If we can get just past that, that would be amazing, because people will start to heal and start to love themselves and care for themselves in a different way.
I want to touch on a little bit about the the conversation geographically speaking, because obviously the history in the United States is different than the history in Canada. Is the history different in every country around the world?
Yeah.
And of course, there's systemic racism. It shows up differently in different parts of the world. And so, can you comment on this systemic racism versus outside of the United States?
Basically, the European, or we call them colonizers, as they are now, went all over the world with the same cognitive, dismissive, abusive behavior. So whether it was South Africa or South America, with Brazil, Argentina, Portugal, Jamaica, St. Thomas, Canada, New York, those aesthetics, those standards kind of transcend location, because they went around the world with this concept that their beauty was greater than anyone's, and they took over people's culture. They diminished lots of culture. the transatlantic passage was the biggest example of that, and stripping people of their identity, stripping people of their traditions and rights, and not giving them the ability to even talk to one another. So that communication was like denied. So the difference is this. The difference is only how it manifests itself throughout the world. It manifests itself differently in many places, but it was the same abuse. It was the same denial of humanness. Because remember, we were treated like chattel. We were treated no better than a horse or a cow. And so, it's all that is part of our DNA. All of that is a part of our ancestral, struggle. And so it happened for hundreds of years. So it's going to take that long for us to recover from that abuse. But on the flip side, imagine how joyous we are to celebrate ourselves, even in spite of that. So we're not where we want to be, but we're not where we were.
Mhm.
So, you know what I mean? So it's, I don't want to make it a sad story because it is a sad story, but there is some triumph. There's some hope, there's some glow, there's some love. And that's where you guys come in to engage and to support people who want to wear their hair natural, to have events, to have engagement and books and parties and just all the things that help people to see themselves, in a different way, helps like to change the next generation. Like maybe we can't do all the changing, maybe the next one will. And so it's just a platform of growth
and progress. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
growth and progress.
And
Absolutely.
that is exactly the language that we speak, because I surround myself with people of color in my community who love and celebrate their natural hair. Like those are the people that shine and I see on social media. And so that gets that ball rolling, more and more and more. And social media, as you said early on, is sort of an express way of getting the message across, all messages across. I mean, it's just
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
But
and
we-
also too, finding your tribe, finding people with like minds, finding your network, engaging with them, not allowing race, color to change the narrative. I mean, because it doesn't matter really what color you are. If you are pro inclusion, then you're and diversity. That's it.
Yep.
And so that to me is really important to get people to value. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the other benefits of Lock Talk is we have guests from all over the world, all ethnicities, and ultimately it's all about love. It's about building your tribe, like you said, out of love and support for one another, and sharing our stories.
Yeah, and affirming people, affirming them.
Yes, exactly.
And validating them through the conversation and seeing each other, visually, seeing each other. We can't touch each other, but we can see each other and identify with that. And so that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps us a continuum of education, and forget about what other people are not doing. My question to you is, what are you doing to make it better? Yeah.
Exactly. What an inspiring session we had today, Karen.
Good.
My heart is swelling. It's
Me
just
too.
like, yeah. I always love talking to Diane.
Well, you've inspired me so much to get on top of this concept of putting a digital piece together to inform the public about Milady and natural hair, getting that onto the agenda. So thank you so
Awesome.
much for that.
Canada represent. That's going to be
Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
We'll
Thank
keep
you.
you in the loop.
Yes, please do. I'll be honored.
Okay. Karen, is it time for a giveaway?
I think it is, Brian. Go ahead.
Let's see. What did we talk about earlier in the show that some lucky listener who was listening could let
And
us
watching,
know?
because it's going to be on YouTube. You have
And
on
watching.
YouTube. The premiere is happening. The first time you see this video, when it's being premiered on YouTube, the first person to comment and answer the trivia question. And Brian, you're going to give us the trivia
Who
question.
can name the book that Diane Bailey authored all about natural hair?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a pretty easy question, isn't it? I think, because we've been talking a lot about it. So
Yeah.
people are going to be like answering on the fly, right? Unfortunately, we can only give away our Noggin Oil products. We can't give away one of her books, but you can find her books on Amazon, because that is really, if you are a hairstylist, if you are interested in learning more about natural hair, if you just want to advocate and help to spread the education in your community, you absolutely need to get her book on Amazon. And you know what the book is because you just put it in the comments below in YouTube. So there you go.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Diane. It's been inspiring, wonderful to talk to you.
Nice seeing you. Thank you so much for having me.
We could talk all day long. We really could.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys are great. Thank you so much.
And one
Okay.
day we will see you in person. Okay.
Yes,
We're going to do a Lock Talk tour. We say this every episode now. So we're going to do a Lock Talk tour and visit all of our guests.
That's awesome. That should be like a little, like a cruise or some kind of trip that you can do.
Cruise. I like that. I've never been on a cruise. That could be interesting.
That could be interesting. That could be interesting. Well, you know, once COVID is kind of submerged.
Right.
Blessing, guys. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Love you guys.
Love
Have a
you too.
good
Take
one.
care.
Thanks
Okay,
everybody
now.
for joining. Thank you for
Thank
listening.
you. All right, girl.
Subscribe.
Yes, and subscribe below. Thank you to everybody who's watched today. Subscribe to YouTube and Spotify and Anchor FM and Google Podcasts. We are on Instagram, lock.talk, and you can follow for our next episodes. Please share the information, share the Lock Talk with all of your friends in the community. You don't have to have locks. You just have to love.
But you have to have locks at one point in your life.
That's right, because Chris McDread says everyone needs to have locks once
in their life.
Bye. See you next time. Lock Talk. Lock Talk. This episode of Lock Talk was brought to you by
Noggin Oil, Modlocks, World Hair and Skin.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.